congratulate to Dr. Devnath for excellent book. It is both a pleasure and a privilege to address you today as we gather to reflect upon a book that challenges the very lens through which we view our world to be or not to be sociological methodological ways of seeing. Books have always seen more than ink on paper. They are living, breathing dialogues between the author and the reader, between the past, present, and future. Through them, we travel across culture, question assumes, and grow both intellectually and emotionally. Every book we read leaves behind trace new perspective, new question, and often new convention. Today's book, To Be or Not to Be, Sociological Methodological Ways of Seeing by Dr. Devnath Pathak, has sparked reflection, dialogue, and perhaps even debate, all of which are essential to any vibrant intellectual community. The author challenges us to reconsider the boundaries of our knowledge. They ask, can we ever truly be objective? Where does the observer and the participant begin? And most important, what responsibility do we carry when we choose to see the world sociologically? In a time of global division and rapid changes, these questions are not theoretical. They are urgent. They compel us to look at inequality not as a statistic, but as a lively reality. They argue us to view migration, gender, race, class, not as abstract concept, but as human experience. And they will call on each of us, not just scholars, but citizens, to remain curious, encouraged, and critically engaged. The title itself, To Be or Not to Be Sociological, echoes the great existential question posed by Shakespeare. But here, the question is not about life or death. It is about awareness or ignorance, engagement or detachment, insight or indifference. As a present, I believe that any democracy worth its name must be built on the capacity to reflect, to question, and to grow. And that begins with how now we see ourselves, one another, and the structure that shape our lives. Let us now begin our discussion with respect, curiosity, and readiness to listen and learn from each other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, of
Yes,
the
please, madam.
discussion.
Please, madam. So thank you so much, ma'am. Uh, so, ma'am, can we start?
Yeah, start.
Okay, with that, the panelist. Okay, so I would like to invite the author of the book, uh, Dr. Devnath Pathak, sir, for the introductory remark. Over to you, sir.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Vikash Kumar. I thank Dr. Ila Macwan for such kind compliments. And I'm so grateful to the friends who have made it to this discussion here, and lots of students who I do not know, whose name I can see on the screen. It's very overwhelming to see. I thought it would be something very small. I have large number is not something which I generally look forward to, but it's good to see these many. My friend from all the way from Kathmandu, Professor Karki, has joined as well. Juanita, Saroj, so wonderful to have you here with me in this moment of challenge, so to say. I will very briefly put it, the reason why this book came upon me. I felt compelled to put it together into a book form. Uh, uh, Over the years, one can say more than a decade, I have felt that there is, and I still feel that there is something terribly wrong with what we do in the name of sociology. Some mishap has happened in the history of sociology in South Asia. This mishap has been variedly recognized by many critical sociologists all over the world. Even in India, the first generation sociologists were more reflective, critically reflective about the nature of sociology. But for broader practical purposes, what prevails upon us in the name of sociology is something very, very conservative. The word conservative here means that we do not want to see how ill we are. We do not want to understand what has dented our, like, we do not want to see that our glass, the lens in our glasses, the spectacles are actually not working on our eyes. What would be more pathetic, more pathological than this? That I see something without realizing that I am not able to see it correctly. This lack of realization is an expression of something deeply wrong with us, with the discipline called sociology, with the practice called sociological practices. And that is the reason why I do not intend to trash it. My bread and butter comes from it. Who would like to trash? Which priest would like to destroy the temple that provides bread and butter? However, every priest has this moral, ethical responsibility to tell the whole world that the temple is not functional anymore, that the gods have to be replaced, gods have to be redefined, that the flowers that we are offering to these gods are not the flowers that we get from a garden. These are plastic flowers, right? So and so forth. I feel there is this unrest in me that sociology is not going anywhere. It is stuck somewhere. And it is not going anywhere because the way of seeing is not critically discussed. This made me restless. And I thought, not necessarily in the mode of trashing it, in the mode of an agnostic, a Buddhist agnostic, or a Nyayik Hindu agnostic, or a Sufi, Islamic Sufi agnostic, who does not know and who is trying to say that I do not know what is the right way of addressing this crisis, but there is a crisis here, right? And we need to first of all realize that there is this nature of crisis which is so strong that it does not even let us realize that there is crisis. That is our first step. And in that mode, a modern bard like Shakespeare, but not only Shakespeare, many of the vernacular bards in different formulations, many of the vernacular bards in different formulations would have given us this kind of, agnostic perspective. We do not know whether we are or we are not, whether we be or we do not be. And in that mode, there is a possibility. I always feel the reason why to be or not to be sociological is productive for me, precisely because it was very productive for a character like Vijay in this blockbuster Hindi cinema called Diwar. So Vijay, throughout the film, we watched this film Diwar several times, and we realized that Vijay, throughout the film, it seems that he is an atheist. He does not believe in God. And toward the end of the film, it turns out that even though he does not believe in God, when his mother is ill, he goes to the temple and he says that, today I surrender myself to you, which means we suddenly realize that this absence of faith in God was not a total absence. So there is some sort of faith in this thing called sociology. And in that spirit of faith, I return to some of those parts of sociology which have been sidelined by most of the practitioners of sociology, whether they are teachers or researchers, scholars, mid-career scholars, eminent scholars, early career scholars, or even young scholars doing PhD and masters. we are trying to, this book is an attempt to show that, the possibility exists with all of this across the board. And the possibility primarily is to, will be fruitful if we put ourselves in this agnostic position, rather than doing this disciplinary loyalty that I see everywhere. We do sociology. What do? You do literature. Literature is nothing in front of sociology. Until we are in this disciplinary jingoism, we won't realize the kind of critical power that is there within discipline, hidden, tucked away somewhere. And this is our job, to bring them back to the center stage, to show the philosophical roots, the critical roots of this discipline, and also to show as to how in the past, in the very beginning, the discipline was very promiscuous in nature. It fed itself on variety of sources. As a result, it became so humongous. And then also to come to the contemporary and realize that there is this contemporary restrictions on this very creative, meaningful, intellectual promiscuity. As a result, the growth has stultified today. So, in short, one can say that yes, the book is anti-sociology book in some sense. It expresses deep disregard for any kind of conservative bastion of academic power. And then it tries to show that, there is a possibility which arises from some of those neglected, tucked away, hidden part of sociology, which belongs to its roots, be it in Europe or in South Asia. So it also tries to utilize some of those roots to suggest that, some of us who become aware of the fact that our ways of seeing are flawed, we will start exploring these roots and move ahead to figure out what could be possibly different kind of ways of seeing. I'll keep it this short. I'm really eager to listen to my friends who are here on the panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. So I would like to invite Professor Amiya Kumar Das, sir. Professor Amiya, sir. Yes, over to you.
Hello.
Yes, yes, sir.
Hello. Yes. Okay. So, good evening, everyone, and I congratulate Dr. Devnath Pathak for this insightful book that he has recently published, and I wish him all the best. And also, I congratulate my co-speakers of this panel, because they have been rightly chosen by the organizers, for this event, and I'm looking forward to their insightful comment also. As recently, I had the opportunity to host Dr. Devnath Pathak at Tezpur University. And I think we organized on a discussion, and I thought it will continue for, say, 90 minutes. But somehow it continued for 5 hours. And then the student also, this research scholar, they were not leaving him. So I had to come in between, and I had to be a kind of create what you call it, a divar, that he talked about, a divar between the research scholars and the author. So anyway, today I will be brief, and then I will also not take much of the time, so that my co-speakers can take time to explain or to provide their views on the book. As mostly I will relate two of his books, like the last published book by Dev, where he talked about in defense of ordinary, and then I'll relate it to this book. Because generally in sociology we talk about sociologists, and in Indian context mostly we talk about social anthropologists, but we don't talk about, or we do not refer to philosophers and literary persons or art and other thing. But it is interesting to note that Dr. Dev, he has been dealing with theorists across the discipline in true sense, and he tries to bring in things whichever is very, very pertinent and useful to discuss and to expand the domain of sociology per se. And if you look at the work of Simone Weil, who talks, the French philosopher, who talks about the paying attention, especially I could relate his work to the attention and how he encourages, means they encourage us to pay attention to things. Like when we talk about ordinary, something which we are not putting it as a binary to extraordinary, rather we should pay attention. And paying attention is very, very, according to me, crucial for a field worker, for a social scientist, or for any ordinary man, or to say researcher or sociologist per se. Attention through which Weil talks about that it is something more powerful than the prayer. So attention has a tremendous capacity to appreciate the everyday life, the ordinary. And I would try to relate this whole idea, concept of attention to in the defense of ordinary, where so-called sociologist or the mega theorist, when we fall to that whole school, I'm not discrediting their work. I'm saying that we should have that insightful eyes so that we can look and appreciate all sorts of work. It may be extraordinary, ordinary, eventful, uneventful, so that we can grasp the essence of thing in everyday life. That is what I can say, that I would not like to compare him to other sociologists, maybe say Goldner, who talks about the criticizing the positivist and functionalist approach and promoting the reflexive sociology, maybe Zygmunt Bauman, or other people, those who have worked after that, are looking at like how we should create a kind of sense through which we should have that capacity to not to fall into a framework through which, and we should question the each and everything what is happening and try to conceptualize and explain that what do we mean when we say something about something. It doesn't mean that sociology is, Devnath Pathak is not saying that each and everything what you do under the name of sociology, you go and do it. We can do it, but we have to explain that how and why we are doing it. And for that, if you start questioning the existing thing, then only our practice of sociology will be more vibrant, meaningful, and we can expand. Otherwise, it will be like a dogma and will fail, and it will not move, and we cannot add more knowledge, or as he said, the ways of seeing will be limited. But we have to add different lenses, we have to add a different color so that we can progress further. Similarly, I would also bring in Paul Feyerabend's whole idea of against method, that how through certain kind of rigidity that natural sciences through the like the state and religion, or church and religion, or state, when the organized mass or bodies, when they try to co-opt the thinking capacity or reasoning, and they try to promote certain thing in a structured manner, then the danger comes. So we have to question each and everything in our everyday life. That doesn't mean that we have to create a kind of randomness in the method. He's not suggesting that. He's suggesting that how best way in everyday ordinary situation, like unlike other, that we have to look at grand theory or grand canon or other things, that apart from that, how in everyday life certain meaningful thing also we can extract and build, or the sociology or the way we look at and try to develop our own way of seeing. That is what he is suggesting. So in this way, that Goldner, Paul Feyerabend, and other people, that what they have suggested, what I find about their work in both, their work both in defense of ordinary and to be or not to be, that he is challenging the students and the scholar who they are falling into a framework or rigidity, that don't be so and come out of that rigid framework and try to be flexible and try to develop. And the other important thing is that in the defense of ordinary, and how I look at the ways of seeing that, the consciousness and awareness. Mostly consciousness and awareness in sociological and scientific language, it is termed as something which is spiritual or what you call it, metaphysical. But that is not the case. He talks about the common sense is rejected by sociologists. Pathak says that common sense is also essential for the sociology. Consciousness and awareness of being, that what we are, when you start accepting that, reflecting on that, and when you try to look at the social processes of event, that will be much more meaningful and much more productive way that we can try to explain it. So in that sense, I do not want to take much time. I would like to once again congratulate Deb, and I will also request him that he should keep on writing this kind of challenging stuff where it will disturb people's attention, mind, and so that they will be more productive, flexible, and also they can contribute in a more innovative way to the discipline that is sociology and social anthropology. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your kind views. Next, I ask chairperson of today's session, Professor Amiya, for your critical remarks on this, Professor Amiya's views.
I think Madam will give her remark at the end of the session. So we should be invited to the next speaker, Arpan ma'am.
Okay, so moving to our next panelist of today's session, I invite Professor Mrigendra Bahadur Karki for his kind remarks on the book we are discussing in today's session. So please.
Thank you so much. Good evening from Kathmandu. First of all, I would like to thank you, Sri Vikas Kumarji, today's coordinator and the president of the Indian Research Scholar Association, and Professor Ila ma'am, Professor Das, and all professors who are present here, and all colleagues who are here. I met Professor Pathak few months back. That was very much interesting, and that was the departing point from where we are here today. First of all, I would like to congratulate Professor Pathak for this excellent piece of work. I would like to reflect from Nepali perspectives, analyze Nepali perspectives, this book. In Nepal, especially in sociology, I would term we have three generations. One generation is very much inspired generation from very much West-centric sociological, that sort of, tenets or domain. That is the inspired generation. Second is critical generation, who became much more critical with that sort of, text relating with Nepali local realities. And third generation, I would term like as sovereign generation. That is if I would term sovereign sociology, inspired sociology, critical sociology, and much more sovereign sociology. I don't know what is the generation, how you have defined in India, but from that perspective, I would claim and I would say Professor Pathak's that sort of perspective is much more sovereign sociology perspectives. That is the first point I would like to make. And second, why I congratulated Professor Pathak. I congratulated him based on three evidence-based my position. First is the book is technically so high. The strength of this book is it has employed conversational format, and the book is much more adopts performative dialogic style. And from there, I think I developed certain sort of idea. Then second is that intertextual richness. You have that sort of richness, like its philosophy, pedagogy, anthropology, visual studies, and folklore. That is another technical strength. And critical engagement with canon, like as you have engaged with Karl Marx, Max Weber, Durkheim, Bourdieu, and many more. That is another that sort of critical engagement. And third, like as stylish innovation. I liked your book because the chapter you have developed, later I will come on that point. These are very much scientific. Scientific, it means that reader friendly. The chapter balance, like as in all three parts, you have 9 chapters. That's what we know. The 9 chapters, these 3 parts are much more divided equally. And these books has very much high philosophical strength, like as epistemological depth. That depth, how we know what we know. That is the context, I think. And you have drawn that sort of position based on post-positivism, hermeneutics, and critical theory to me. That is the thing. That's why I would term it as a high philosophical strength it contains. And it's the ontological ambivalence. That is another philosophical, that sort of, ingredients. And it's very much creative ambivalence. I reflect it, I go on, and it seems like as nuanced philosophical realism. I went through, that is the philosophical domain, and ethical and political reflection. You are much more, responsive in terms of egalitarian, democratic, freedom, this sort of thing, and that is high ethical and morally and politically. This book is very much highly charged philosophically. And intellectual integrity and ethical reflexivity I got going through your book. And philosophy of freedom is another very important component and ornament, that sort of, of this book. So that is the very much freedom to methodology, pedagogy, and consciousness. That is another sort of domain you have picked up and you have investigated. And thought that another part is methodological strength. That strength is deconstruct of the methods fetishism, and critique of methodology as it is beyond technique. We need to engage ourselves. Methodology is not very much technical, that sort of, processual only thing. Methodology includes both philosophical as well as processual part. At last, I will come upon in this point. And it's very much pluralistic orientation I got. And you have stressed multiple methodological traditions, and you have used and you are based on multiple sociologies. That is another that sort of strength. And resistance of gatekeeping. That is another very important thing, is that in this part of the world, to a great extent, what is academic, what is not academic, what is methodological, what is not methodological, what is theoretical, what is not theoretical, we have been consciously, unconsciously, we have been making that sort of, gatekeeping. And you have opened that sort of, part. And I'm very much impressed with your chapter, that sort of, this part division. Like as in your first part, I went through, it's very much philosophical and it's very much metaphorical, like as dawned. The first part is the hermeneutics awakening philosophically and existential reflection I got. And it's very much theoretical focus, foundational influences, binary exploration, ordinary versus extraordinary. And from that first part, I got methodology as epistemology. Going through your first part, based on these two earlier my points, I got methodology as epistemology. And it is a shift from doubt. That is another sort of strength of your book from your that first part. And second, foreknown and afternoon, the peak of intellectual light, I would claim that, I would term in this way. And these chapters, I think this part, sociology before sociology, return to the Trinity, Marx, Weber, Durkheim, science revisited, sociology rethought, and post-positivist ways of seeing. This includes, to me, philosophical underpinning of that part is that modernity and critical re-evaluation. That is the one point that is suppose this phrase reflects like the high noon of the intellectual rigor, engaging with the promise of modernity and scientific optimism, while simultaneously subjecting foundational sociological theory to critical re-examination and deconstruction. That is another part, and questioning certainty. While rooted in Enlightenment rationality, this section also begins to question its evolutionist claim, paving the way for more nuanced understanding of knowledge. And my theoretical focus to me in this part is that classical engagement. So time is very short, so I don't like to go through all this sort of thing, but I would like to claim is that first, your part is the curiosity and ideological birth. That gives the curiosity and ideological birth, the initial spark of inquiry and nascent formation of a sociological perspective, and foreknown mastery, challenge, and epistemological confrontation. That is the foreknown second part. And docs is humility, unlearning, and philosophical maturity. What I found this sort of thing in your book from that perspective, but here I would like to make my reflection is that if I were Professor Pathak, and what level of engagement he has made in this book and in this academic journey, how I would divide that part, I would claim from South Asian philosophy, Abhava to Bhava. Abhava is to some extent the strength and the technique the book has envisioned as down as the abhava, absence, unawareness, and latency. Conceptual link, philosophical depth, and transition. Second, I would as define as becoming, that is the bhava in process, critical formation. And third would be as refined bhava, presence as awareness and reflexivity. That would give much more South Asian flavor and South Asian civilizational content compared to the chapter that the language you have done. I know it is much more in global context as well, not only in South Asian context. In that context, at one level, to make our sociology much more sovereign sociology of South Asian sovereign sociology, I would think from that perspective too. That is one part, and I'm very much interested. There are certain things, some of your, this paragraph are entire one page, or so sometimes readers get confused and they would be in two minds, what is the intent of author in this chapter or in this paragraph? So that is another thing I would like to share. And at last, I would like to propose one thing with Professor Pathak, is I am very much delighted and I was very much honored to be at your university last time. I proposed Ko Prasna van Veda, Kaham Sociology. It means that who knows what sociology is? We can divide sociology into two that sort of labels conceptually. One is like a philosophical phrase of methodology, that is Kaham. And second, WH, that sort of phrase, that is the processual phrase. And what sort of WH questions we have been adopting all over the world because of Western Enlightenment movement and because of this science positivism, rationalism, empiricism, natural philosophy, then this science positivism, anti-positivism, post-positivism, this sort of process, we can't erase that sort of, academic, that tradition, but we can initiate based on that book. I think to some extent, explicitly you haven't used the questions like as Ka Prasna in Nasa Diya Sukta, like as seeing sometimes in I have eyes, but where the eyes of I? That is the deep philosophy of South Asia. That philosophy can enrich our sociology. That sociology would be sovereign sociology. And your generation can work on that sort of part. And in that context, again, I would like to highlight first conceptual part, that is ontic and epistemic part would generated from Ka Prasna. Because to me, even Gautam Buddha didn't pose research questions from what, how, why. He posed from this South Asian, that sort of, civilizational questioning pattern, that is whence, I think. And I think that sort of new space it has invited. So again, I would like to congratulate Professor Pathak and our colleagues. I don't use that term student, MPhil and PhD level, my colleagues, they are here today and they are very, very familiar with this book. And in near future, someday, we would be more than happy to invite you in person in Kathmandu, and we would like to have another program here in Kathmandu. Again, thank you very much, organizer, and congratulations, Professor Pathak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Karki. Such wonderful invitation. We all wholeheartedly accept it, and we will join you in your endeavor to establish sovereign sociology.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Professor Mrigendra, for highlighting the philosophical and methodological as well as dialectical soundness of Professor Dev's book. And we are very fortunate that we got to listen to you as you went one step further and situated the context of this book into the sovereign sociology scholarship. And with this, I would like to invite our next panelist of today's evening, Dr. Juanita Kakoty, Assistant Professor in Center for Liberal Arts, Guru Gobind Singh University. Ma'am, kindly share your views, ma'am.
Thank you, Arpanpreet. Thank you, Vikas Kumar, for inviting to the discussion today. I'm extremely delighted because Dev has been a very important part of my journey as a student of social science, of sociology, and I have gained immensely from my discussions with him by reading his articles, his books, by processing his thoughts on a particular subject. And I'm sure Saroj will agree with me, and so will Amiya. All of us who have been having these discussions. So I would like to begin by congratulating Dev once again for this wonderful book. This book is wonderful for many respects, but I would like to list out a few, and I'll not take much time. First and foremost, this book reminds us how important it is for a social scientist, for a sociologist to proceed with humility. And where we draw that humility from, or how do we arrive at an awakening for this humility is what the book nudges us towards by bypassing the Cartesian emphasis on the certainty of truth. And to list out other important fact points, aspects of this book, I would like to say that, as usual, Dave is poetic and philosophical as he engages with issues sociologically. As Amiya said, he pays attention. He asks us to be, mindful and not get into the whole run for dehumanized data. That is very important. I have worked in the field as somebody who has worked towards preventing human trafficking for sexual exploitation. I have worked on India's research on India's prostitution policy, and I can tell you how important this is. To be mindful, to pay attention, the attentiveness that even poet whom I love a lot, Mary Oliver, whom the whole world loves, has pointed out again and again. This attentiveness is very important, the mindfulness. Next, Dave engages with what can inspire teachers and students in the classroom. And he's again and again telling us, all of us, that, we have to be mindful of the text, the subtext. We have to be mindful of the context, constraints, as well as liberties. And in doing this, he says that how it is important for even the researcher, for the student and the teacher to be aware of, to try and interpret one's own location, in the academic journey, not just one's academic disposition, but one's own academic journey. For instance, this is what I always tell my students, say when we are in the classroom, we are dealing with the reservation policy. When we are talking about the advantages of the reservation policy, there is a huge, resentment amongst a certain section. Now, when that happens, it's not the task of the teacher to tell them, to force that understanding on them. Because as Dave points out in his book, there is this fusion of horizons that will have to happen for them to arrive at an understanding and then interpret that understanding. And their awakening will happen only, or understanding will happen only when they're interpreting that understanding. So we'll have to let them be. It's a journey, it's a process, which is why Dave again and again tells us that it's a becoming. It's always a process. And when I link it to, say, the policies, my recent research on prostitution policy in India, Dave, I have found that it's stuck in the colonial times. There's no becoming of the policy. It's stuck because the intersubjectivities have not been taken into consideration. We are still looking at the prostitute from the colonial lens, from the colonial understanding as one category, whereas if you take the lived experiences into account of several categories of women in India, you will never come to arrive at one single category like the prostitute. So all these things are really very important, and Dave highlights that in his book. As everybody has mentioned, Dave's book is an attempt to engage readers in a discussion about methodology by not merely reducing it to techniques, methods, tools, and deliberations on the types of research. His aim is to address methodology for what it is, a discursive realm entailing various ways of seeing. Therefore, Dave makes room for the possibility of skewed vision, partial understanding, inclusion and exclusion, pride and prejudices in this discursive realm that should not be, as he argues, and I quite agree with him, and many of us in the room, rest on proving the already proven. Dave, in this book, reinforces what he has maintained in most of his academic works, that the relationship between the seen and the known cannot be settled because of the historical and socio-cultural determination of the ways of seeing, and that there will always be a hermeneutics, which I had mentioned earlier, and fusion of horizons at play as we try to bridge the gap between the seen and the known whereby the researcher gets absorbed in a biographical, experiential, intellectual, and emotional becoming. And I quite agree with you, Dave. This is extremely important to actually call oneself a social scientist, a sociologist, or a researcher. If this is not happening, then you just become somebody who is kind of parroting a particular train of thought to arrive at one particular outcome. But the outcomes that we should, even if we are trying to arrive at an outcome, historically the outcome will also change. There will be a becoming of the outcome as well, which we shouldn't forget. One interesting point that Dave makes in his book is that to be sociological, one also has to be anti-sociological. So has to broaden the intellectual horizon rather than reproduce the tried and tested. He points out being sociological emphasizes the category of experience. And this is very important when we go to the field. And as sociologists, social scientists, if we are to, epistemologically, ontologically engage with the field, then this is what we have to pay attention to. The category of experience. The relationship between scholarship and the personal life of the scholar is also very, very important. For instance, if I also teach gender, but you'll be amazed if I tell you, when the reservation for women in legislative bodies was being discussed, and I was in high school at that time, I very proudly said that why should women require reservation? Women should be, women will make it on merit. But I have made my journey. Yeah. So therefore, that is very crucial for us as sociologists. Now, Dave's book is very useful for students and teachers of sociology in particular and social sciences in general, because the book traces the development of a sociological way of seeing over the years. And it is also an important book for all those interested in how sociological knowledge came to be established as a discipline during and after colonial rule in India as well. And then he dwells on different voices in the philosophy of science during the post-Enlightenment phase, which aids in the understanding that science is not free from value orientation. Dave also covers how, in India, sociology and its way of seeing had to negotiate not only with the European masters, but also its own organic intellectuals, thinkers, poets, and artists, to name a few. He continues to make a case for exploring new methodological ways of seeing from India and the rest of South Asia. And I'd just like to, wind up my comments here by kind of saying that as Dave, in his book, traces alternative forms of rational conscious thinking, it helps us to understand that epistemology is also a quest that includes one's own experiences, one's interaction with the environment, the embedded socio-political context and history. And I would like to conclude by saying that such alternative epistemological quests are important because when one is open to and engages with this plurality, there is the possibility of transformation, not just of the outer world, but of the self as well. And this comes out very well in Dave's book. Thank you so much. Congratulations, Dave, once again.
Thank you, Juanita. Juanita wrote a review which read far better than the book. So I would request everybody to look for.
Everybody knows that can't be the case.
Thank you so much, Dr. Juanita, for your views as you highlighted the process of becoming, and then the outcomes also change. As a researcher, we should keep in mind that it's a process of becoming of outcomes as well. This thing has made me even more curious to read this book in coming days. So thank you so much for your views. Next, I would like to invite our last but not the least panelist of today's discussion, Dr. Saroj Kumar, Assistant Professor of Sociology, University of Lucknow. Good evening, Professor Dev. Your audio. Yes. Good evening. Am I audible to all of you?
Yes, we can listen.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Devnath Pathak and the organizer who has given this opportunity to have some words and some well, whatever I found from your book. But at the outset, I must congratulate Dev, and I feel that you are the perfect disciple of Professor Abhijit Pathak. I can smell that from your book, Abhijit Pathak's classroom is reflecting. So your idea of to be sociological, not to be sociological, is also to be philosophical, not to be philosophical, is also reflecting upon whether to be historical or not to be historical. So the questions you have raised through your book is something is challenging to the discipline. And I'm sure you are working in an international recognized university. The conventional teachers, the conventional educational institution may not accept the challenges what you posed through your book. It gives a strength to the people, those who are not even part of the sociology, the discipline, but also beyond the humanities and other social science disciplines. And the best part I found from your book, through your book, you have talked to the reader, whoever is the reader. Me as a teacher, as a reader, as a listener, as a learner of sociology. And I felt that. And also I found from your book that how from the first chapter to the last chapter, it is a sense of understanding that how your idea of sociological imagination is something from C. Wright Mill's difference of sociological imaginations. When I was a student of sociology in JNU, I started reading this book, C. Wright Mills. So that was conventionally accepted one of the best book as a social science discipline must read, and it is one of the most prescribed book for all the sociologists from across the sociological universities. But the best part, your idea of understanding sociology from a postmodern perspective, because you challenged, you deconstructed the given methodological way of looking sociology as a discipline, or how to understand or how to accept the discipline in the classroom as well as beyond the classroom. So it is not something that gives a foundation for the new students or learners of social science, but also gives a foundational learning to all the teachers who used to accept whatever it is given, whether it is Auguste Comte's idea of positivism or the critics of positivism from Karl Popper, Thomas Kuhn, or Paul Ferrament. So it reflects that how your idea of understanding the discipline, not necessarily to be sociological, but also doing sociological, has a sense of understanding the everyday life and how it is going beyond the given framework of the sociology as a discipline. Because in most of the classroom teachers, even I as a teacher, we give some prescription given by the theories, whoever it is, the Western theorist or any philosopher, and almost all the students, they are guided and they are heckled or they are chained with certain theoretical perspectives. And that is the limitation that of the discipline. Why we are binded by the given prescription or the given methodological framework to understand the discipline. Why it is something, it is prescribed by a certain idea of theoretical perspective, which is necessarily limiting our imagination. So here I must congratulate Dev, who has given this idea of that how the discipline has been looked at since years historically, and today also he wanted to put into in a larger framework of understanding the discipline. And another important aspect that when the idea of Karl Popper philosophically who speaks about the idea of falsification to go beyond the positivistic approach of understanding the discipline or the methodological framework. Why he gives the falsification idea?
because falsification itself gives that until unless you are not criticizing or you are not looking the discipline from a critical angle, so discipline itself is not going to be a better discipline. So the discipline is going to extend the boundary when you have the right and capacity and also liberty to criticize. So that is where Karl Popper says that knowledge, there is no limit to knowledge and ignorance. And it also gives the foundation of that you have a right and liberty to conjecture and refute the existing philosophy of understanding the discipline as a logical, methodological way of understanding our discipline. So even this book is read by any student who has never been part of the sociology student, might be from philosophy or anthropology or even history or even psychology. He or she can smell that how the idea of the methodology is a sense of understanding the society in a larger framework. Though this book has a larger focus on South Asia or Indian perspective, but it is a sense of understanding the discipline from interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary approach. And that is the strength that mostly the sociological imagination are read by the sociology student. But this book can be taken care by any discipline, even beyond the humanities or social science. So people like Karl Popper, Thomas Kuhn, Paul Ferrament, their philosophies are not only giving the dimension of understanding the sociology as a discipline going beyond the positivistic approach, but it also gives a sense of understanding that how there can be a better way of understanding. Because you, until unless you don't criticize, until unless you don't limit your imagination in the sense of given idea, so how we will get a better way of understanding or a different way of understanding the discipline. So this is where the strength rises, that raises the voice of that the discipline should not be binded by the given methodological framework or the philosophical perspective as it is mostly the student they perceive. So it gives a methodological innovation. It is also how it gives a provocative and engaging style of understanding the discipline. And it is a relevance of the multidisciplinary approach to understand. And the best part that wherever there is a parochialism to understand the discipline of sociology or social science, that also Pathak Dev has given this challenge to this parochial aspect of understanding the discipline. And there is a reflexivity, sociological imagination, that how the idea of engaging the discipline not as a prescribed or given framework, but rather in an evolving framework, everyday experiential, reflexive framework, and that goes beyond the positivistic approach of understanding the discipline. So there is also a harmonic sensorium. What it gives a specific way of understanding that how the traditional social science has been accepted by the reader or the those who are learning sociology or sociology as a discipline. So that gives also challenge that you have to go beyond that idea of the harmonic framework, and that also gives a better understanding in terms of interdisciplinary framework, in terms of the idea of multidisciplinary of the methodological framework. But my idea is not going to complete unless I give some critique that where the book has a limitations, because most of the anthropologists or social scientists, they give their ideas on the basis of empirical fieldwork or empirical grounding. So where the author, how this author has given this ground to relate the practical applications or the empirical grounding part of this understanding the to be sociological, not to be sociological. So further researchers, those who are doing research in different disciplines, they may give these applications that how the idea of Devnath Pathak's methodology has given a new way of understanding the field or the field work. So that can be. And another way of looking that how the European readers, those who are not from South Asian perspective or the Indian perspective, how they will look at, because most of the social scientists and philosophers we read in our discipline, they are mostly from Europe or America, because their contribution is also not denied, but they've given us strength to the discipline. And now this idea of imagining from their Pathaks to be sociological, not to be sociological, it gives also a further understanding of European contributions or the American contribution to the discipline from micro-sociological theory to postmodern theory. Then another important aspect that I wanted to give from my own perspective, that how this idea of to be sociological, not to be sociological, is a sense of the regional students, those who are not comfortable to understand the philosophical terminology or the strong words that is part of our discipline. So it is difficult to be translated in different regional languages, because most of the state university students, so when they wanted to get some insights from this book, so they may require some translated version of your book, because the book can be understood by those who are English education or having the philosophical background or from a better institutions or university students. But I feel that this should be translated from any experts, those who are good at their own regional languages or any local language. That would be beneficial to the students from different parts of our country, because these books will give the idea of the to be sociological, not to be sociological, from their understanding, from their own regional way of understanding the classroom. Their teachers who are not being taught in English medium sociology or to a higher level of understanding the discipline, because I found it is interesting for those students, those who are comfortable at their philosophical terminologies or English terminologies. Because few of my students, they also read from this book and they said, sir, it is difficult for us to translate to a local language, because for them it is not an easy way. So that I can suggest any of our friends or those who are working in regional universities, if they can translate some of the reviews or some of these important aspect of the book, so that would be beneficial for our students, those who are not comfortable at English language. And I must congratulate all my co-panelists, and the best way that we meet each other in a digital way. All our friends, from Amiya Bhai to Devnath to Juanita, my old JNU friends, and I'm so happy to be part of this panel. And thank you so much. And I congratulate again Dev for this wonderful book. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Saroj. Thank you. So nice to hear. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saroj, for your kind review and you highlighting how this book might be helpful for the students who are not engaged in sociology. Students like me has made me even more interested. So it has been such good discussion with all our panelists highlight different perspectives of Professor Dev's works. That shows how much this book holds for this scholarship of student sociology and related disciplines. Next, I would like to invite chair of today's session, Professor Ayla, for her concluding remarks. Vikas sir, is ma'am there with us?
Madam is here. Professor Ayla, ma'am. One minute.
Hello?
Uh, yes.
Yes, we can hear.
Yes, ma'am. We are seeking your concluding remarks.
I think, Dr. Vikash Kumar, you only need to give the concluding remark. I have got my conclusion right. All the panelist friends have given me a lot of stuff, and that's wonderful conclusion for me. But for the technical conclusion, Dr. Vikash Kumar, I think you need to take the lead.
Just madam has sent message. Madam, can you listen me? Professor Ila ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Yes, madam. So, madam, we are inviting you for the concluding remark.
Yeah, sure.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
It is a great discussion. It is a yeah, yes, sir. It is a great discussion, intellectual discussion, and thank you very much, all panelists. In Gujarat, is a heavy rain, so internet problem.
Yeah. It must
Right?
be. It must be. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
So,
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
thank you so much,
Right.
everyone. Yes. So, if any participant want to ask the question to the author of the book and to the panelist, so the session is open. So you can ask your query and doubt to author and the panelist. Any participant can ask the questions.
I think everything was so crystal clear that there is no. Yes.
Yes,
So I
Bhavya.
believe we would first have to read the book. Bhavya has raised her hand.
Hmm.
Ye- No, even without reading, you can ask any question. Don't worry. Don't feel any. You won't be penalized if you ask. There is nothing called wrong question. You can ask.
Yes, but
Please.
she is raising hand, so I think we should allow to her. Bhavya, madam.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bhavya from USLA. I have a basic question that how the futuristic perspective of sociology will be. And there is a, as ma'am said, and as sir also said, there is a limited perspective for which I listen or heard about the book. So I want to ask how the future of the sociology will be seen because there is many other social challenges plus AI is also revolving and it is like a society is a part is a whole sum and AI is one of coming into that sum, so we have to look into that perspective. And secondly, I have one more question, like as Joanita ma'am is teaching me in USL, so there was a point that how a standpoint of a person should be shown, like from which standpoint in the futuristic we will shown, because as in the book also the sir has like the limitation of the past and all that, and I listened the whole conversation. So these are my two questions. I hope to be
Dave, before you respond to Bhavya's query, I must congratulate Bhavya for raising questions. I'm very, I really appreciate the interest that you have shown. She's a BA second year student.
Oh, wonderful! Wow.
Yes, which is why this has to be applauded. And Dave,
So,
she needs to hear you. Even BA students need to hear you. I would say students in school also need to hear you. Over to you.
Wonderful,
then may
Bhavya.
I raise?
Yes, Saroj wants to say something, but before Saroj,
Yes.
I must say, Bhavya is really one. It's a very good question you have asked, and students like you are our hope. We are futuristic about sociology as well as, in general, any kind of pursuit that we have. It's precisely because of the young scholars like you. You are our source of hope. So I'll come back if Saroj leaves something for me. Please,
I
Saroj,
have
go ahead.
something to say regarding your futuristic aspect of the sociology as a discipline. Since your BA, I must congratulate that you have certain queries that is also most our senior scholars also may not think about. But one of the
Yes.
best part, you when once you are a master student, you will read the theory of structuration given by Anthony Giddens, and you also understand the idea of sociology. It started with a humanistic disciplines, but when you say that we are in a society where AI or postmodern sociology gives an importance dimensions to the non-human actors, because non-human agencies are becoming more familiar in our everyday life, so that it's challenging the discipline as a humanistic discipline, because mostly the structure and individual, when we understand the idea of Anthony Giddens, that how the agency is a human being, and that also creates the social structure and it influences the social structure. But when we understand the future aspect of the sociology, it's not the human being is the actor who is going to challenge the social structure. It is the non-human actors, the AI, the digital media, the social media, which is controlled by, yes, it has a control by the human being. But there are many things to say that how these non-human agencies, non-human actors are being so powerful
Yeah.
to influence the social structure. That is one of the way to understand that most of the futuristic aspect of sociology as a discipline, it's not limited to understand the humanistic approach of understanding the society or social structures. That is one. Another aspect, when you read the postmodern aspect of postmodern philosophy of understanding the discipline, it gives a maximum boundary to understand the discipline. And it gives from literature, it gives from the art and aesthetics and architecture. It gives the Foucault, Derrida's, Lyotard, and Baudrillard. Many people will read from postmodern perspective. These thinkers, these philosophers, are not limited to the foundation or fundamental aspect of the sociological background. They are going beyond that, and that is the futuristic aspect that sociology is no more looked from the Karl Marx, Weber, or Emile Durkheim's or Parsonian perspective of understanding the discipline. It has given the maximum boundary from philosophy, from art, from literature. And that is the future aspect, what I believe as a teacher of sociology and a learner of sociology.
I totally agree with Saroj sir is very famous for giving these very intelligent answers. You can see on YouTube. He's so, I mean, he's envious, inimitable. He's wonderful. One thing which I would add to this wonderful answer Saroj has given you, Bhavya, that the future lies in you, in us, how we do things, how we see things. With a teacher as Juanita around, I'm sure there will be a persistent provider at your end who would keep giving you something different. Some see, okay, you're thinking it this way. Why don't you also try to think it this other way? This kind of permutations and combinations. AI is nothing unless there is a teacher like Juanita who gives variety of keywords to AI. So without this human agency, AI cannot give you. AI needs a very intelligent keyword provider. And the keyword provider is the teacher who is providing keywords to Bhavya. Now Bhavya will use those keywords and will create a future for all of us. Thank you, Bhavya, for asking such a wonderful question. I think Simran has question as well.
Yes, sir.
That's another
Good
BA
evening.
student. That's another
I
BA
was about to
student of
say
mine.
I am Simran from USHSS department, GGS IPU, and I'm also Juanita ma'am's one of the student.
Wonderful.
And I just had one question in mind. This might go a little bit off the conversation about your book. I just wanted to know, with everything that's been going on recently, like Citizenship Amendment Act and the NRC and all that, sociologically looking at it, do you think it's going a bit more in the past, as in getting more conservative rather than getting more open like it should have been? And since I have been seeing a bit videos of things happening on Assam side in protest about NRC, so I wanted to ask about that. Thank you.
Simran, nobody can deny this charge of conservative sociology. Sociology, even in this book, there is this acknowledgement that in large part sociology, right from the beginning, had the element called conservative. But it was a different time when there was something called conservative philosophy. And it was very well respected philosophy in UK for sure. Conservative philosophy was the philosophers, Edmund Burke and all. They were the first one who gave a very critical perspective on French Revolution, while French Revolution was being celebrated by a lot of them, a lot of us, a lot of humans that time. So no, nobody can deny the presence of today. It is a different kind of conservative element that becomes, it works like a force, and it determines the way we should see things, and that is where the challenge lies for all of us. But what do we do? I mean, how do we respond to this challenge? Do we go out slogan shouting and become a victim eventually at the hand of these powerful forces, or we figure out some more creative, nuanced way which does not let us become easily a victim, and yet we are responding to these forces? This
Yes,
is a
sir.
question which Simran, which I am also personally trying to deal with.
Yes, sir, you answered very well. But once, just opinion, since I
Yes.
am a bachelor student myself, so I might not know much, but I feel like to bring that change, there has to be change within the system. But I don't see it coming with all the politicians and the things happening. People working for greed rather than for other people.
Yes.
And just like Juanita ma'am said, that in the field of even prostitution that she's been studying, things have not changing, and they're like, people are like, I don't want to get trigger anyone, but like people with BJP representative trying to make a Hindu Rashtra. I don't think these issues are being how do I say? I mean, like presented for or being spoken about. It is more focused on their own agenda.
Yeah. So that is one way of putting these things. There is this agenda-driven politics, a very organized politics that gives us this sense that things are so. One can get pessimistic looking at them, but then there may be some other kind of cultural politics, more what James Scott used to say. Somebody who used to say, no need to worry about these names. Somebody used to say that there are a lot of those hidden transcripts, hidden small politics. We're all political without joining any political party, and we have all these small instances where we get involved and where we contribute politically, and those things become ultimate source of hope for us. We realize that someday something will certainly become better. So Simran, being a young student yourself, I suggest that go for those smaller things. When the Lenin used to say this, when the big revolution is not seemingly real, go for smaller stuff, which are already unreal. I mean, nobody's paying attention to this smaller stuff. But Simran, I
Thank
can
you, sir.
understand your anxiety, and we should have longer
Yeah, since
conversation.
I'm a literature student, not a liberal arts student, but even reading in literature, and I have sociology as a minor subject, so reading about that, and we had a paper course on religion as well this semester. So I just am realizing how unconsciously people are just voting without realizing what each party's standpoint is. Like some people don't even know
Simran,
what is standpoint.
just to kind of add to what Dave has said and to kind of respond to your question, you will to think like a social scientist or to think sociologically, you will have to make linkages between the whole art of governance, governmentality, Foucauldian concepts of biopolitics. You will have to locate it in political economy. So the questions that you have raised can be answered if you can locate it in this larger context, while at the same time becoming aware of your own journey, where you stand today, what your standpoint is, and how you have understood. So you will have to understand it sociologically. If you are to understand it, you'll have to talk about biopolitics, you'll have to talk about governmentality, you'll have to understand Foucauldian regulationism. You will do it, you'll arrive at that. But I'm very glad you've been asking such questions.
Thank you, ma'am. It's all your teaching, actually.
Professor Dev, I have a
Wonderful.
related question because since we have arrived at this discussion on postmodernism and the current governance practices, there is tendency while we are reading in the editorials and listening to other scholars, there is tendency to label everything that is happening in today's era, which does not necessarily integrate with the democratic world in which we are supposedly living. They are intended to label it as conservative or something which is past oriented or historically oriented. And just as you mentioned, the current, even the religious fundamentalism or these kind of things are so organized. They have been never this much organized in the past. So isn't it better, or isn't there a way to label them as the new challenges rather than putting them into the same conservative frame, like the labeling?
Yeah, yeah. No, you're very right, Arpan. Oh, this is so very well nuanced. Yes, yes, it is something very, very new. You can very safely say it's a kind of neoliberal version of conservatism. It's what? How do you say it in today's term? Simran and Bhavya, Gen Zs will tell it, say it better. It's a regressivism 3.0 or something. How do you say it in that kind of today's jargon, today's parlance? So it
I have
is
no
something
idea
very
since,
different, and
yeah.
yeah, yeah. I also don't have any idea. I'm just guessing. So it's a regressivism 3.0 version. If because see, it does not offer you any alternative today. It just uses certain kind of premise to further a certain kind of agenda, and therefore I have absolutely no problem. Any brand of politics will have certain kind of vision of the world. If it is just rhetoric of the world, is just some kind of dummy image of the world, is just hollow worded world, then I would not say it is anything other than just a neoliberal variety of
Hello.
empty vessel, which just sounds too loud,
सर पीडीएफ नहीं भेजा आपने?
right? Which may be very violent if they're thrown at each other. They'll be very violent. They will be making unnecessary
हाँ हाँ
noise,
पीडीएफ का
but it
भेज दो.
won't have any substance. You're very right, Arpan, that it is not even, certainly it's not conservative ideology, conservative philosophy is nowhere, because that conservative philosophy of Edmund Burke, and likewise conservative philosophy in South Asia, many of the conservative philosophers in South Asia, conservative thinkers in South Asia, were very liberal in their outlook. And this is something else. And this demon, even I am not able to name as of now. So I'm just thinking aloud with you.
Yes, I
Lokesh has
agree
raised
totally
hand for
because
a very long time.
Yes, sir. Very good evening to all of the members who have joined this meeting, and to warm greetings to the teachers who are just have given very uh, impactful lessons to us. Sir, my question is regarding as the topic of this, as the title of the book refers to the methodological ways of seeing. So I want to know from your side, sir, that as you know that SARC as an organization has somehow failed uh, to achieve the objectives of the regional cooperation. What the aim of the, what was the aim uh, of that
Ah,
organization on which the organization was set up? So how right now we see that there is a shift from SARC to BIMSTEC. because we
Instantly,
see
yes.
that, yes, we see there is somehow the relevantlessness of the organization is seen in the global forum and the international relations as far as it is seen over the years. I want to
Uh,
know from your side that in South Asian societies there are so much social concerns, issues, uh, the upliftment of people from the poverty. There are so much terrorist concerns, terrorism concerns, and the trans-border migration is also an important issue right now. And if we see in a global forum, there are so many countries are facing these things like migration, just like Mexico to America, and there are issues with the Middle East countries also. So how this book is going to apply the methodologies to resolve these kinds of issues, especially in concern of the in relation to the South Asian countries like Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Nepal. Thank you.
Lokesh,
Okay, one minute, sir.
Lokesh, this is really a very heavy question. Are you from IR background, Lokesh? Are
No,
you
sir,
from
I'm not from.
IR background,
No,
Lokesh?
no,
IR
sir.
background. Acha.
I am doing my research in sociology, but I read the articles and I have prepared for UPC at once. So I have some interest in these issues. So how sociology is going to look at it, these issues?
Dave,
So,
can I, before you speak, can I
yeah.
just make a
Well,
comment?
see, yes, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, Lokesh, can I just kind of
Yeah.
address your question first? Because as I mentioned when I spoke, that I have worked in the space of policy making with policymakers, bureaucrats, politicians, and vis-a-vis human trafficking prevention in India, South Asia, and the world. The challenge that I faced, and many people uh, from the academia and advocacy sectors, different advocacy sectors who interacted with the policymakers, the challenge that we as a collective body faced was that it was very difficult to make the policymakers understand where we are going and how we need to change our perspectives and how we need to kind of the old structures, the old systems will not work. And which is why in my observation about Dave's book, I mentioned that it is his book. If we read, if the policymaker had read a book like the one that Dave has written, if he has read such a book, he will understand not to be rigid. He will understand that determinism will not lead to outcomes that are very helpful for people or even for states or for collective bodies, people, the human race as such. What I'm saying is Dave's book will make the policy maker realize that we need to take into consideration the historical context that we are in today. And taking that historical context into consideration, taking the experiences of people, lived experiences of people into consideration, we need to then, while locating it in the art of governmentality, while locating it in the global world that we are today, we have to arrive at policies. This is a huge gap in policy making today. And therefore, I would recommend Dave's book and books like Abhijit Pathak's books like Sri Lankan anthropologist Gananath Obesekara's be read, you know, to arrive at this understanding. Because again, this understanding that I have just laid out in front of you, that you need to be flexible. You need to take into consideration lived experiences, not your experience of how you're looking at it. Then you will not be different from the colonial actor. The colonial actor looked at Indians from their lens, from their understanding, and therefore they imposed their laws. But we need to look at the lived experiences of people before we bring policies for them. So books like Dave's is very important in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your
What I wanted to
response.
say,
And actually, the core concern of my question was actually that this book is going to apply the Indianized perspective, Indianized our own view of our own way of looking at our own problems. How we are going to resolve our own problems in our own social periphery, because we have a trend of doing research and looking at things through the Western lenses. So we as a social researcher observing that our South Asian countries are having same issues. Somehow they are dealing with same kind of issues.
Okay.
So that is why I asked this question. Yes.
Dr. Pandey, I think Professor Amiya and Professor Mrigendra both have highlighted such kinds of the issues. So I will share this video. I think you have joined this session late. So I will share this video to you and you can listen. So other Susant want to ask something, and it could be last question. Okay. So
Good evening, everyone.
okay, yes,
Am I audible?
yes, yes.
Uh, First of all, I would like to congratulate Mr. Dave sir for his book. I haven't read that yet, and I'm so excited to read it. I'd also like to thank Megan sir for allowing us for this opportunity. Uh, the question I want to ask first, I would like to give a little bit of background of my studies. I'm recently studying MPhil in social work, and I'm also a student of social work. So we have been studying sociology since bachelor's. We have been studying sociology in masters, and we are still studying sociology in MPhil. The thing is, sociology. When we study sociology, uh, we try to explain it as academic side of the society, while social work is practice-based sociology. So I just wanted to know how relevant is the book, to be or not to be sociological. I just want to know, is it good to be or not to be sociological as a social worker? Thank you.
thank you, Sushant. As it has been said several times in the discussion today as well, uh, this is mostly about critically understanding what is my way of saying, or what is your way of saying, or anybody who is involved in a social work program, what is that way of saying? Usually, here the concern is that usually we do not question that software, be it in doing sociology or in doing social work, we do not question the software, which basically means the lenses through which we try to see things. So, Shant, here the proposition is that if we want to make our understanding more sensitive, more context sensitive, we need to examine our lenses. We need to realize that this lens is good enough to see certain things, but it is not good enough to see many other things. And that way, the book might provide some sort of clarity about how to examine our own lenses, number one. Number two, it will provide some kind of ideas about what kind of alternative lenses one can try without having any guilt that one is not being sociological, or one is not being adequately a social work professional. That is what the whole purpose is here, Sushant.
Okay. So
Thank you so much, sir.
I think because there was one someone from northeast who wanted to ask a question, and I have
Yes,
some kind of love for
Soman Tamang
this.
had raised her hand, but just uh, she has left the meeting.
Okay, okay, okay. Uh-huh.
Shauman, are you here? I think she is not here.
Sanon, yeah, she's here.
Hello, sir.
Okay.
I am.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Sanan Tamang. My question was somehow similar to Susant, as we are classmates.
Oh,
But but could you kindly share any advice for social work student like us from a sociologist point of view?
yes. The
Please.
major advice, the one line advice I have for
Hmm.
most of the friends doing social work is that let's forget about, let's not have this prophetic syndrome, that God syndrome, that I can change the world with one intervention. It doesn't work like that. We all, I mean, particularly social work students have, and I appreciate that spirit. I admire that kind of, clarity of vision. But then an intervention programs certainly require that kind of clarity, that with this kind of policy intervention or this kind of action plan, one can bring about certain kind of changes. But we all know that social structure does not change so easily. It is something that requires slow and steady efforts, not induced by the outsiders, the professionals. It requires the insiders to bring about some of those slow and steady changes in the practices. Then it changes. So this is my one line advice, Sanon. If you ask me, you have given me an opportunity to be prophetic, and in my prophetic reply, I'm saying that all of us should step down from that prophetic level.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Uh,
Thanks a lot. Yeah.
so thank you, and once again, congratulations to Dr. Pathak, and thanks to giving us opportunity to conduct the book discussion of this excellent book. So on behalf of the India Research Scholars Association, it is really privilege and great honor to me to deliver the vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to thanks to Professor Amiya, Professor Mrigendra Bahadur Singh sir, Dr. Saroj Kumar Dhal sir, Juanita Kakoty madam, and our author of this book, Dr. Devnath Pathak sir. I would like to also thanks to the all panel participants, those have joined the various parts of the India, and very many research scholars and students have joined from the Nepal. So on behalf of the IRSA, I would like to thanks everyone. I would like to thanks uh, Dr. Arpan Preet Kaur, and thanks for moderating this session, and also thanks to the Professor Ila madam for chair this session. So on behalf of the IRSA, I would like to thanks everyone. So thank you, and once again congratulations to the
Thank you.
Dr. Pathak sir, and I would like to uh, uh, request to the all participants and also the students, please read this book and give your views. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure. Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you, Dev.
Thank you.
Thank you, Juanita.